Yo, people, welcome back to DR Sports. You already know what time it is. It's time for another daily transfer video. Make sure you smash the likes on the way in. I'm looking forward to this one. As always, there's a lot to discuss, and it's starting to get rough and tumble in the transfer window because we're coming into the last few days now. Teams are panicking, moves are being made, players are starting to really question their futures in their current clubs. When the first few game weeks are out the way now, we're starting to see squads settle down, and they're starting to realize that maybe they need to make that last ditch move to potentially even resurrect their World Cup chances for some of them. So let's get into it. Chelsea, to begin with, and Arsenal on Wilfried Zaha. They seem to be, the pair of them, fighting for Wilfried Zaha because he is expected to be cheaper than, obviously, Neto at Wolves, who has a higher price valuation, a longer length on his contract. Zaha going into the final year of his contract, expiring next summer. He could be available for around about that £30 million mark. Obviously, this is a key player for Crystal Palace, but they have been linked with Sarr at Watford as a potential replacement or even just an extra addition to their attacking options. But of course, Palace, do they really want to let go of a player for free next summer? Is that really worth it for them? Or, of course, Zaha is integral to what they do. He's had a really good start to the season as well. So it is a little bit of a back and forth. It's a difficult one. And when they recoup that money in from either club, if they do, then how much time do you really have to spend it? So it's not easy, the position that Crystal Palace find themselves in. But Zaha, you would probably say he's really going to be trying for this move as well. At least internally, he would want to make this move to a team in Europe, either in the Champions League or the Europa League. It's a massive step up. It's maybe a last chance for him to move to a big club as well in his career, as he's getting to the peak age. And he's obviously showcased his talent for a while at Palace now. He's been their leading talisman. He's been the guy that has been dependable, been reliable, taking the opportunities to dribble, to take on players, to go past, create opportunities and score goals. And now, obviously, Arsenal are looking for that depth since Nicolas Pepe left the club. And Chelsea, well, they're definitely looking for an attacker as well, with Ziyech on his way, apparently, reportedly expecting to go to Ajax. And then on top of that, Hudson-Odoi, which we'll get onto later, where he's going. So there's room in both setups for a Wilfried Zaha to potentially start or at least be a very important squad player, depending on form, of course. So, but apparently and reportedly, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Gordon are still very much on Chelsea's wish list. However, according to some other reports, this does get pushed aside, Aubameyang, in terms of maybe interest, maybe cooling on him. And that's maybe more from a board perspective, a 33-year-old on high wages. They're not too sure if they want to make that investment. And you can understand there is no resale value on Aubameyang if he comes in. He has to work. It has to make sense. Long-term, it's not a long-term sign. It's more of a stopgap, a short-term. So they're having some hesitations, according to some other reports. But Gordon, of course, we mentioned it before, he has been very much priced out of a move by Frank Lampard with that 100 million price tag valuation. And of course, there is a deadline, apparently, for Gordon to make that transfer because then Everton would need to go and replace him with that money as well, which everybody would know that they have. So it's very difficult to see an exit strategy for him as well, despite, the fact that he probably wants to make that move internally, as maybe voiced that behind the scenes. But like I said, Evertonian, number 10, scored at the weekend against Brentford, a big player for them, of course, so it's not going to be easy. It's not the first time Arsenal have been linked with Zaha either. It's definitely been multiple times now we've seen ourselves in this situation. And, if it gets done, he goes straight, you feel, on that left wing to challenge with Martinelli. Marquinhos was also signed as well, but it feels like as if he's going to be more of a PL2 player. I think he was on the bench at the weekend. So there's a lot going on there, but the Pepe replacement is definitely needed, whatever flank it is. And obviously Zaha is versatile. He has played up front before. Wouldn't say it's his natural position. Definitely would say he's more of a striker. But if need be, he can fill in up front. And that gives Arsenal and Chelsea that extra sneaky depth to an alternative of a Jesus or an Nketiah, and in Chelsea's perspective, an alternative to Havertz or to Broja as well, if there was an injury to fall, etc., loss of form. So it's a versatile player that can play across the front three. We know where his strongest positions are, but he has the strength, potentially could hold up the ball if need be. He's very Premier League proven in that respect. And his injury record is really strong as well. The guy doesn't get injured, so he's very reliable in that sense. So it'll be interesting to see if he does make the transfer to one of these two clubs, it would be last gasp and it would be late. But decent value for money potentially. So Manchester United also have inquired about Aubameyang. We've seen this before. This is from Court Offside. We've seen this rumbling around for the last few days. However, Depay is also available. So that's another forward option that we could look at in terms of versatility to play in those similar positions across the front three. His move to Juventus didn't materialise. It did collapse. They ended up going for a cheaper option in the end, wage-wise. And he could also look to make a move. Of course, his contract was expected to be terminated by Barcelona. In the end, we're still waiting to see what will happen with him because, of course, he's still looking for a club. But Barcelona are more than happy to terminate. He is happy to terminate, but he wants to go to a big club. And there is that connection, that Dutch connection again at Man United that is starting to build up with players coming from the Eredivisie or just that Dutch link up with Ten Hag. So he could be another option. We know they're looking at Gakpo. They've signed Antony for 100 million euros as well. So maybe there's room for another. Maybe there is. But it will be interesting because how far do you want to push Ronaldo down the pecking order if he does come in? It would further, push him, you would assume, out of the plans. But he could even make a move himself. And speaking of Ronaldo, his agent has really, really, really continued to push for moves, whether it be Sporting Lisbon, Atletico Madrid. And now he's returned to Chelsea, investigating whether a move to Stamford Bridge is possible. But apparently, once again, that has been rebuffed by Thomas Tuchel, who's not interested in the 37-year-old striker once again. But again, George Mendes just sniffing around, just seeing what he can get, seeing if there's a little possibility, just knocking on the door, potentially seeing if they have changed their mind. It is a bit desperate at this point, but I've always felt that Ronaldo is not a player that wants to sit on the bench or even be rotated. This is a guy that is, a huge figure in sport. He's one of the biggest, if not the biggest figure in sport, following-wise, at least social media-wise, marketing-wise, branding-wise. It's not good for the Ronaldo brand to be on the bench. It just doesn't work with the brand. It doesn't work with Ronaldo. What you associate Ronaldo to be is a talisman, is a man that plays games, is a man that scores goals, is a man that chases records. You can't do that from the bench. So that's, for me, where the real frustration lies. Of course, Champions League football is always going to be, involved in that as well. But for me, I don't really see how he's going to sit on the bench consistently without potentially even kick up a little bit of a fuss behind the scenes. And speaking of Manchester United, former Manchester United winger Daniel James has been linked with Tottenham on a loan deal, which has really come out of nowhere. We were just speaking with Fuad on the shows there for Premier Leagues, and I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. Now, where is he going to play? Is he front three backup? You would assume maybe if Brian Gill was to go out on loan or to leave permanently, maybe he comes in as a replacement for him in the very deep depths of the squad. I can't imagine him being at wing back, but you could see how some of James's traits would suit wing back, the pace. So I don't get it. It's a really strange one. And to take him on loan as well is really, really odd. You'd assume that Leeds would not be loaning out a player to a team above them, much more quality than them. So I don't really get it, if I'm being completely honest. I don't know if he's really even got the quality to take that step up. I don't think he'd play a lot of games. And of course, the World Cup is coming up as well. So I don't really think it makes sense at all. But we'll see if it happens. We're getting to that point in the window where there will be shocks. And speaking of Manchester United again, finally, is Cavani, another player. He's been a free agent for a very long time, but he is making that move to Valencia. He's arrived in Valencia, and the transfer is expected to be announced today. Well, it has been announced today, and it's a 2-year deal as well in place for him. So he's been waiting for the right move. He's been looking all summer, and he's finally got it. And he's still going to be able to put the ball in the back of the net for them. So it's going to be interesting. We do see a lot of aging strikers go to La Liga. And it's just whether or not Valencia can have the pace around him, because when you get to that age, you're going to need legs, you're going to need people that can get around you and create those opportunities. He's really just to be in the box and to do that celebration that he always does. That's all it is with Cavani. I think his Man United stint was actually decent. He definitely scored a decent amount of goals. I mean, you have to expect certain things from a player that's probably on the downward trajectory from PSG. The Napoli was the peak. If you took Napoli version of Cavani, you're getting him at his peak. After that, your expectations have to be somewhat limited. And of course, going back to Ajax, with that Anthony deal, Ziyech is expected to be an alternative for Anthony. 29-year-old was in Amsterdam after the Leeds game, after the Leeds defeat, the day after he flew out there, potentially to have talks and try and conclude and close that deal. We know he's been changing lawyer, changing agent, and has wanted to try and move away from Chelsea really all summer. Doesn't really fit the system, hasn't really flourished under Thomas Tuchel, only really in spells, purple patches, as we've really seen the best of him. So he's looking to go back to where he's happiest, which is at Ajax, where he did that amazing semi-final run in the Champions League, and we saw some form from him there. And speaking on Chelsea again, they've offered, apparently, reportedly, according to Football Insider, Broja, Conor Gallagher, plus 25 million for Gordon. I saw this one and I was shocked. I couldn't quite believe it. Could not quite believe how much money they was actually offering. Plus the player. When you take the player valuation, especially in an inflated market, how much is Broja worth? You'd say maybe 25, 30 million minimum because of his age, because of the potential. Gallagher, you'd say maybe 40. You know, again, in an inflated market, he's made the England squad. He had a good season last year at Palace. It's a lot of money, plus the 25. It's a lot of money for Gordon. But again, they had a massive valuation, a very high valuation. I don't know if that's really going to get accepted, if that's really what Everton want. They do want players in. Of course, they're struggling. They've brought Mupay in from Brighton. They do need probably another striker because Rondon is not reliable either. Ali's gone to Besiktas. So it's a tough one for Everton. They need players and they need to really try and bring in some quality, and those two would bring in a lot of quality. Does Gallagher, though, would he want to actually go to Everton is a better question as well. I know it would probably help his England chances to be starting week in, week out, to play in a team that maybe play to his strengths, but to go to Everton, who are going to be in a relegation battle, when you've just been at Palace, who were really, really good last season in mid-table, I think Gallagher could probably do better, go to a team like a West Ham or a Palace again. If you're going to leave Chelsea, surely those are the kind of levels you're looking at to try and flourish. And Callum Hudson-Odoi, the Chelsea news doesn't stop. He is leaving to Bayer Leverkusen on loan. There is no option for a permanent transfer there. There was negotiations. It was looking like it was going to stall the deal, but it is a season-long loan to, at the moment, a struggling Bundesliga team. But I've seen that team. There is some talent in there. You'd expect it to pick up. And at last, Hudson-Odoi at 21 gets his loan to another team to try and showcase his talents. He's been at Chelsea since he broke onto the scene from the academy under Sarri, and now he's finally getting to go out on loan like the other Cobham graduates have. So it's going to be interesting to see if he actually has that breakthrough season that he desperately needs that breakthrough season. We're also hearing that Frenkie de Jong, a certain Frenkie de Jong, has or is in London. Man United and Chelsea fans kicking up a fuss over that. But he is expected to stay at the Camp Nou despite interest from those clubs. Obviously, Liverpool as well, looking for a midfielder. Could there be a shock last-minute gasp move for him? You never know. Like I said, Klopp came out and almost apologised, kind of went back on his words that he didn't need a midfielder. He now admitted he did need a midfielder, and he does need a midfielder, and they are looking for a midfielder due to the injuries that they have. And maybe Frenkie de Jong could come up in their plans. There is saying that there's interest here from CBS Sports, so you never know. You never know. It would be wild. It would be very last minute and a shock. But you never know. And Liverpool also, if we're talking about midfield targets, are looking at Sander Berge as well from Sheffield United, the Norwegian midfielder. He was highly, highly rated and regarded before, but haven't really heard too much of him since. Asensio is another one at Arsenal. If you're looking at another option outside of Neto, outside of Zaha, we know that Real Madrid have offered him out to Manchester United already. Now Arsenal apparently will begin talks if he decides he will leave Real Madrid, but Real Madrid are certainly open to letting him go. He hasn't really been a constant fixture. He had injury issues as well. There was a base level of serious talent there. Great games against Bayern Munich in the Champions League that I can remember, goals being scored from him, a wonderful left foot when he was breaking through. But those injuries maybe have taken their toll. Stocks have fallen, and Arsenal are looking to buy low and invest. So let's see if the Asensio stock is on the up. I'm interested to see if he makes that move. Where would he play? He's probably going to be bench from the start. Saka, has got that right wing spot pretty much sewn up. Odegaard just had a man-of-the-match performance in the 10. So where does he really fit in? He's not going to play on the left wing. So it's going to be an interesting one if he does to make that move. But that, for me, would be kind of like not a panic buy, but that would definitely be a purchase that they didn't plan for, but they're just looking for that depth because, of course, they haven't been able to take the other targets like a Neto or Zaha, who maybe they just feel are too expensive or not worth the money. So that's how I see that one. But it's going to be interesting to see if that does materialise. We know Sergio Reguilon has also made that permanent transfer to Atletico Madrid on a loan with no option to buy. Fabrizio did confirm that. And Harry Winks, if we're talking about more Tottenham players on their way out, he's also going to Sampdoria on a loan as well in Serie A. It's another player that Tottenham were looking to get rid of. They had a little cluster, we spoke about it maybe last week, a cluster of players that they wanted to move on, wanted to get out of the club, that were very much on the fringes. And those two are on that list, and they look like they are moving them on. So yeah, it looking like that's going to be the case there. So in terms of Chelsea as well, you know, Ampadu, again, another player that's going out on loan to Serie A, to Splenza. He's going out there. There is an option to buy 15 million euros, but he is going out on loan, the Welsh international. And he had a good loan in Serie A last season as well, for Venice. So World Cup year, again, not really getting too much game time at Chelsea. There is an option to buy, and we'll see. It looks like Serie A clubs, at least at the moment, have seen enough from him to take him in. But we haven't really seen much interest from Premier League clubs, so it looks like he could be a Serie A. And he does suit a back three. He played it at Sheffield United under Chris Wilder. And obviously for Wales, he's played DM. So maybe the Serie A suits him right now. He's young, he's a defender, learn his trade, much like others. Tomori, Trevor Chalobah was linked over there as well. We'll see how he progresses. He's still young, only 21 years old. But that is your roundup of all of the transfer news. Big up your damn selves for listening, as always. And please make sure you smash up the likes. Let me know in the comments what you think and feel of everything I've spoken about today. And let me know what you think will be the shock of the last few days. Let me know what you think will be the shock, because there is always a surprise. Let me know your surprise, a late deal that you don't think anybody is expecting that will happen, because there's always at least one. It doesn't have to be a big club. It could be any of the clubs in the Premier League. But let me know what you feel is going to happen. What you have a little ITK moment in your head and you think, yeah, I'm going to put my neck out on the line here. I can see this one going through. No one sees it coming. A position that is needed in a team, etc. And I'll see you guys next time. Subscribe to DR Sports. In a bit, people. Peace.